sir.
Yep. Okay, the meeting's going to be called the order. You want to stand and do the pledge of allegiance. The flag's over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. My instinct puts that up here like the Boy Scout. I was a scoutmaster for 13 years. Okay. Yeah. Well, I sign your name. It's not a signature. It's not a signature. It's just a print. The five of you. I got the five of you. I got the five of you on the sheet. I don't know if it's thank you, but because a lot of times people don't do it, you know? All right. Any public comment by the peanut gallery here? Yes.
Would you introduce Yanni?
Yeah. You want to introduce her too?
Go ahead. It's your committee.
Yeah, but we're during public comment. Yanni is, how long you been with us now? A couple of weeks?
Yeah, 3 weeks.
She's, for lack of a better way to introduce her, she replaced Jim. And we got some big shoes to fill. And we're glad to have you on the team. I've already met with you once. So if you want to say something, you can, but you don't have to.
No pressure.
Yeah, no comments. Happy to be here. Happy to help.
Well, thank you for coming.
I would add, if you haven't read anything about her background, she's been with KW for 8 years.
Right.
And has had entire properties under her wing. So this is a little different for her, more properties, but more folks.
And she'll find the uniqueness of a 55+ community.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's so easy to get along with. Everybody's good. Yeah, just ask anybody.
Okay, I went through the minutes. That's the next thing on the agenda. I went through the minutes, made some changes. But for the most part, I don't know, Daniel, are you scribing these minutes? They seem like they're a lot better now than they used to be.
No.
I don't know. Somewhat, they were on the website. Does someone want to recommend we approve these? Have a motion?
I'll have a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, second. I would vote.
Aye.
4-0. And we can get in the main purpose. We will show the financial report. Hi there, Mike. That's okay. You're here.
You did the pledge by yourself.
Yeah.
Stand in the corner.
Okay. This is the current situation through the end of January. Where we are financially. I think when we get into the next level, I got some ideas, but when we get into the bank restoration, we're going to have to do some challenges. We're going to have some challenges when we talk about that because it's about double what we were anticipating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I mean, put things in perspective. It's $100,000 more at the low bid. So some of the others are more than that. And the other thing is the price per foot, when you look at it, went from $43 a foot to do the restoration up to $120. So there's a per foot. So there's a wide range between the bids.
But also to remember, the pond that we're doing is the largest pond
Yeah.
that we'll be working on. So
It's
this
over.
is not just a mid-sized and we're going to have bigger ones later. This should be the most expensive pond that we have.
Do we have any idea, Doug, as far as quality of work or materials or anything else that
Well,
is making the difference
what-
in those bids?
No, same materials. Same materials. I think you got, well, we're almost starting the discussion as we speak. I'm just going to say this will be a challenge. Okay, and we're going to have to use the 90,000 down there is, it's really not ponds reserves. It's something that can be done. A reserve usually can be used on operation and maintenance expenses. I think you know that. Well, this is not a reserve from that aspect. It's prior years, what we hadn't spent. Surplus. So we came into last year with 90,000, and last year we added 124,000 something. So we have, that's what we have in this surplus, or whatever word you want to use. That's what we have. And I'll show you a lot of stuff was just things that were done in October that ended up spanning years. So it's not just that we were that far off our budget, it's just that some of the things built to this year from last year.
So Doug, some of that carryover reserve has already been spoken for, correct?
Well, I got a chart on that I want to show, but I got, how do you fund this with your budget and without increasing the budget? How do you fund it with your budget with some of the reserves or surplus? And if you combine together, I think we could have a way to do. Okay, let's see, what was it? The next thing is the actual bids. Just go down a little more. Those were the 5 bids. We actually had 5 bidders, which is very uncommon, I would think. So we had 5 bidders. There is a difference in price, and I'll come back to price later. 315,902, which is CMB. They're out of, I believe, Tampa area, and all the way down to 671 at MRI Construction. How many of these we've had? I'll show you. I created a spreadsheet with that type of stuff. MRI, I think, bid high because they just got stuck. You guys, they bid on a pond at Gateway, and they were the ones that tried to back away after they won the business.
Oh, yes.
And you guys at the board level of CDD board forced them to do the pond at the original price, or give up their bond, the bond. Well, this is the next bid they bid on. Guess what? They aren't going to get in that position again. And that's my opinion. That's my opinion. Okay, let me try to take over here. How do I take over? I haven't joined yet. I guess that would help. There's a way for me to share a slide.
Yes.
Okay, let's see.
Up at the
where's that
top,
right-
where right by it says leave, there's a share button,
Yeah, I see that.
and then you can hit your screen.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
Looking good.
You can pass a few of these around.
Gotta enjoy the last couple of years of it, you know?
Make sure my screen. Okay.
Oh, here, let's make sure you guys have it first. And you can share
Thank you.
it. You can join it.
I'm trying to find out, I got the thing down here is what I want to share. I want to share this screen here is the screen I want to share. And when it comes up, it just got CBB.
Now you're sharing anything that's pulled up on this screen.
Okay,
So just click on the item that you want to look at.
and it'll show up there?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Click. There you go.
Yes, it is, and would like to get it bigger. Okay, here's that looks a little out of focus. Either that or my eyes are bad.
No.
Okay, you have some handouts out there. I'll just go across the top. The first column is CMB, civil, they're the cheapest. And if you go down to the bottom, it's 335 or 315. Maybe I'll read my chart. It's 315, but if you look at it, that includes dewatering, which we said we weren't going to do, at $30,000. It's got a 10% contingency added into the bottom line, but the bidders were told to add a 10%. And usually that's what we control, and it's not as considered part of the contract. It also had the additional 1,192 feet that are within specs. And I'll show you a picture of that part of the pond. They're within specs, which means that 52,000 is something that does not need to be restored and still fits within the state guidelines. But it would only be for appearance. So we'll look at that. But if you look at the bids, it's 315 through 671. Okay. If you turn the next page, if you take out the additional bank restoration, take out the dewatering, take out the 10%, okay, contingency, you're at about 205, all the way to $430,000 for MRI. So it's roughly a 200,000, and just in rough numbers, I was expecting around 100,000. But some of it is the more formality, because if you go up there, the general, those first three, the mobilization, demobilization, the general requirements, and the surveying are things that were not considered in the $100,000 original estimate, and those add to it. So Daniel, maybe do you know about this surveying, what that is for?
So surveying is, outlining the LME around the lake so that they have a working area for their lake maintenance easement. So the surveying is staking out where control is at.
Yeah.
Up to the 20-foot LME, and making sure that there's nothing inside that easement so that they can actually do the work.
You can put peak.
My apologies.
That's okay. Okay. So if you said, I think we went through that. Now, your comment, Lynn, on the next page, I tried to put together some key, one more up, or two more.
I can't scroll up, but you're sharing. You have to scroll.
Yeah.
So also in that survey as well, not just that denoting what the LME is, it also helps us stake out and do any locates that need to happen in there for irrigation, and identifying anything inside that LME that, yeah. Or sometimes people love to encroach on that LME with landscaping, things along those lines. It just happens over the years. People plant something, it takes off like a wildfire, and they don't think anything of it. And now it's inside the LME within the working area that we would have contractors in. So
I can't get this to work. That's okay. I couldn't scroll down on that sheet because it only did a picture of the one screen. I can go through, what I would do is go through the low bid and maybe the next to low bid. Cross Creek that you seen on there, they are, actually, that's the aquagenics team that George Bowling, the people that have worked around. That's where he is. He would be the lead on that contract. And there's the ones that Gateway has had experience with is MRI, Landshore, and Cross Creek. I think Cross Creek, which is George, does some of their maintenance of the pond maintenance that we do with Solitude and Superior. So there's some experience there. Material wise, the references, the low bid has no reference they got 5 references, but none of them are in bank restoration. Okay, the low bid, I think if you think about it, they're trying to get into this market. Okay, but they have the restoration references. The highest was Landshore, which had 5, and EMC Divers had 4. So some of the others have had bank restoration. All of them have coconut mesh. The other thing, Gainesville is where, I said Tampa, it's Gainesville where CMB Civil is headquartered. You have North Fort Myers for MRI, New Smyrna Beach for EMC, Venice for Landshore, and East Palmetto, I think that's in the west side for Cross Creek. So one of them, which is a high bid, is physically located here. Years of business is everywhere from 7 years So CMB Civil has been in line for 7 years. And all the way up until 21 years for Landship.
So well established.
That would not be an issue. I just will say there's two recommenders before that I checked on or whatever. Staff has recommended to take the low bid, CMB, but they held with the caveat of they haven't been able to complete the reference. Nowhere, they haven't been able to do any reference verification yet. Got to call Tyler back, but they recommended that. I talked to Al Slicker, who is part of the Bigger Ponds Group, and he has done these before when he worked at Shelter. Okay, and his comment was, it's a pretty simple thing. You take a grader out, you grade the ground, you take a backhoe and throw it on the shore. You put the coconut mesh on top of that, and you put the grass. Okay, he thought it was a pretty easy task. Okay, and he also thought that his gut feel would have been 200,000. Okay, so that's where that is at. If we took a different bid than the low bid, we'd have to span it over multiple years. So, yeah.
A question I have, how does this compare to what kind of bids you guys have been getting?
Apples and oranges, because we put the flex mat in, which drives price versus the coconut mesh. So technically same means and methods per se, but the materials drive the costs. So.
And all 5 of these vendors had the same material.
Now, other than the material, are these general costs in line with what you?
From what I've seen outside of the materials, yes.
But when you look at the cost,
3 out of the 5 proposals here that you've seen are people that I work with on the other side for
Okay.
ponds. I actually just came out of a pre-construction meeting with MRI. EMC divers, that's Extreme Divers, are currently doing a lake for us right now inside Daniels Preserve. They're the ones for means and methods. They use the barge. They bring in a barge and they do all the work from the water versus whack dumpers and coming in and taking bobcats and skid steers around all the way around. So they bring in a barge. And then Cross Creek, I think everybody's got some familiarity with Cross Creek out here. So Landshore and CMB, I have not, in my short tenure, had much to do with them. I don't know about the Gateway side, whether they've had any interactions with them or not.
what's with CMB?
Yeah, I don't know.
No one, I checked
I
that.
don't
No
think
one
so.
had any with CMB.
Which one is the
So, is there any questions you have?
What are the downsides to going with the low bid? Other than it's in my mind, a little bit is always a toss.
The downside is, are they able to complete the project? Okay, the other thing I had was the timing. Because I had that on the sheet, if I could have displayed it. If you go to the first line on the hard copy, 60 to 90 days is what from that CMB Civil, all the way up to 180 days for Landshore and Cross Creek, 70 days for MRI, and up to 120 days for EMC divers.
What's the dry versus wet here?
Season.
Oh,
If you get
okay.
into wet
In the wet season.
If you get into wet season, then the assumption of not having to do dewatering might fall apart. So even though I subtracted that from the because one of the bidders didn't even bid dewatering because we told them we didn't want to do it. But you might have to set aside, the contingency might be we have to do dewatering, and you got to be able to cover that expense.
Well, what is the pond levels right now? Do you have any idea?
They're slightly above control.
They're what?
They're slightly above control
I was
right now.
gonna say,
Yeah.
I would think so, because this really hasn't been much of a dry season.
Well,
Yeah, we've
no, the dry season was wet and the wet season was dry.
Right,
We should have done it in wet season. The water level was low. So,
So a best practice that I've learned from this, Doug, is to have it queued up with that notice to proceed on hand. So as weather is permitting, then that's when you action that doing this. So you have the contract scoped and signed and ready to go with a notice to proceed date when weather is permitting, trying to get it into the best time frame where you don't have to dewater. Sometimes you're forced to if you want to force the project through. But it is something that if you have the budget there and you have time to play with it, then you can flex left or right to try to start.
the good thing is it's all going to be in off season, which is good, right? That the people that live on the, and there's a lot of, and so you know, it's about the one side of Solera and the other side of Corinne, no, Margarita. And there's quite a few homes on each side. The Margarita side will be completely restored. The two ends are completely restored. The area that if we don't do the extra 1,190 some feet is on the Solera side. And my plan would be, once we decide what we do, if we're going to do littoral planning, that I go to each of those homeowners individually and tell them what our plan is, as opposed to them seeing everything else done and theirs not being done. Right? We
Well,
have,
in theory, you could even do the littorals prior.
But they could
As
then
long
get
as,
down.
as long as they don't have to get past that area to get to another
Yeah.
part where they have to do restoration.
Yeah. So let me see if I can finally get, I don't know, Daniel have to get this. I can't get out of this.
So Daniel, why was staff's recommendation to go with this one? It doesn't have any references for it. Because it just cost.
And it's lowest responsible bidder, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you have,
Bonded, so we. don't-
Yeah, it's not that they're not trusted. They're a vetted company that has experience in this. It's just that we haven't verified the vetting on it.
my answer to that would be if it was a more complex project, like, let's say we were going to do the, whatever you call it, Flex or Armor Max or whatever the type of
Thematic.
thing, it would matter more that they didn't know how. They've never done it.
It helps to hear Al's perspective too.
Al has,
Yeah, but it's not that big of a.
and he
engineering
probably, and
job.
I know that he probably exaggerated like it's nothing, but as a risk factor, it's a lower risk than any other way to do it.
So what's the difference in the they do over at Gateway versus the Coconut Man?
There's not a lot. It's just the way that they lay down the material and how they fold it back into so they dig a trench line on the top. That and they come in, they grade, and they fold back the material into that trench line, cover it back up, lay rock. So we lay rock over top of everything
Okay.
and then grade to final grade with a ledge with a rock lip that sits out into the water line right below control level.
Is that kind of what's done in Avila?
Yes, it's the same technology that's done in Avila, the same technology that was done in Sevilla.
No, no.
There's a pond there. If you see white rock
Yeah.
on the
that's
bank,
it.
that was done that way that he's talking about.
And that-
And it was done by extreme
Yeah.
divers and
It
it was
does.
very expensive.
Does it increase how long it's gonna last?
That's debatable.
Well, we are,
10 years.
we are 6-7 years into both technologies and we did not see a difference. But the problem is, it's not the problem, but the thing is, the key is you gotta plant littorals because they're within, as a coconut mesh decays, the littorals take the control of keeping the bank from eroding. It's the littorals. Gateway does not want littorals.
We don't do
on their
littorals.
pond. They don't do littorals. So if they use coconut mesh every 5 years, they'd have to redo it because it would decay and then the erosion would start. For us, the ponds where we did coconut mesh, and I sent pictures of all that to Stephen, the Tetra Tech engineer, and he thought they both looked good.
So we'll just have to keep littorals at the top of our, you know.
And in fact, Jim's got a plan right now to some of these ponds that there is no littorals, to make sure that they get planted, so we don't have 2 years from now, we're doing more than the 7 that we were looking at doing.
Because it takes a couple years for anything to become apparent that any work has been done. We did work a year ago and for all intents and purposes, it's like anything, you plant something, it goes into shock. And it needs to take root, and then we expect to see some growth on it this year. But again, you don't want to wait 5 years. You don't want to wait 3 years and then say, okay, that's working out good, let's do the rest of the pond.
We gotta look at our lifespan, we don't have that.
The clock is ticking here.
Think it fast, faster and faster every day.
Okay. I want to show with the funding, that's, well, it doesn't show up there, does it? I tried to do share. You don't have to give it up, do you?
There you go. You're sharing again.
I should have shipped this thing to you. I thought I had it, I'm sharing, oh, I'm not to the, let's see where that is, it's right here. It's right there. Didn't change on me, Daniel. See if you can, that's the chart I want to show.
You have to get your granddaughter. Here, Pop.
Well, any discussion in the group about pros, cons type thing, knowing that we probably could only fund the entire pond if we did the low bid. If we do the other bids, we would probably have to span it over multiple years. Or go back to some type of reserve beyond the ponds group to do that. We've never done that. We've never done that in the past.
Well,
Okay, yeah, that's it.
How are we gonna do future ones?
What?
Where's the money gonna come from?
Well, if we look, wait till we get to the budget,
Okay,
like for next year, the budget proposed is 3 times for erosion that we did this year. Okay, so we, with our bank, the drainage between the houses, that goes pretty much to 0. And that money just went from, that was 175 this year, that just went over to bank restoration. So we'll have 300,000. And this is the biggest pond.
okay.
And who knows who we go with. If they're not successful, we won't go with them on the second pond. That's the other thing from a low risk standpoint. 1 pond. Right?
Yeah, there's not a commitment. to
There's
do-
not a commitment to do 7,
Right.
which we have on the list.
You know, it seems with what you said that the complexity of this project.
Yes.
It's not high. I mean, it's sort of
Right.
a standard thing. And so taking that into mind, even though we have really no references or experience with the low bid, it would seem sort of makes sense to go with the low bid to sort of, this is gonna be a test.
Yes.
Project. If they do well.
You got 6 more
business.
ponds. You can do a lot of business.
If they mess up.
Yeah. And the other thing is holding the vendor accountable. I believe with the new partnership we have with staff, with Daniel, it will do working together. Daniel is more a ham. He with his military background, he will keep the vendors, and that was a positive. Don't sit there like that.
We'll get Thor,
Well, plus Al is on site,
right.
so
Yeah.
Al will also be
Yeah.
having input
Yeah.
from the neighbor's perspective or,
Yeah. I
You know-
think on that perspective, handling the complaints from the neighbors will be us and the ponds group. But the thing of no one in the ponds group, or almost no one in the ponds group, likes to be the bad guy with vendors. Let's be honest. And,
Well, it's not being a bad guy.
Pick-
It's
pick
holding
me.
them responsible
Holding
to
them
do what they-
accountable.
Pick me, choose me.
yeah, no, that's what I, that's
You know,
what
like
I
that,
just
yeah.
said.
So currently how it stands out in the gateway side of the house, I do a weekly huddle with the contractor, their project manager. I get a situation and status update, figure out what barriers they may have or any complaints that I've received on my end. And it's a good time just to communicate it to the contractor so they can address it. Silly things like a truck backed up to drop in fill and drove into somebody's grass. How are we working to get that resolved? I work that piece. And then anything that you bring to the table that has been heard or been voiced, I can address it with the contractor as well. I have no problems with that.
So, do I have a motion, from the floor, which way you would like to proceed?
Well, and it seems that CMB is getting into this as a new business, and I
Right.
think that gives them a very strong incentive to show a good performing job to hopefully
To
be
get into it,
considered for future jobs, especially being a lower bid.
Yeah.
If they do a good job, they stand a chance of creating this additional business line
for
for
us,
us.
let alone other things. I mean,
Right.
the worst thing of trying to get into a new market is have a horrible.
Somebody
first-
trust you.
Well, or
Yeah.
have a horrible first project
Well-
that you're responsible for.
The other
Can I ask
item,
About that picture?
Yep.
Now, is that one we will do or not do?
Well, I'll address that once we get to the next part, but yeah.
so there is a perk to having a contract that only has one pond on their books. That they're not conflicted with other items where we've bid out on the gateway side, 8 ponds at a time and only been able, like, I'm still working on fiscal year 23 ponds because of weather. And the way that we have to pump down and flowways and different lakes are a little bit different and each one has a different staging area and how we work with communicating with the community surrounding it changes from lake to lake. So having one lake on your books versus say 8 or 4 or 2 makes it a lot more simplistic and easy for the.
So I'll make a motion.
Yeah.
That we go with the, CMP.
Okay,
And give it a
okay.
chance.
Vote,
I hope that's good.
5-0 to go with the low bid.
I sound horrible.
Well, no,
We'll go
well,
with CMB.
To go
Huh?
with the staff.
Go with CMP similar.
well, you gotta
We'll
remember,
go with
the board,
Daniel's recommendation.
yeah, the
Remember,
board,
this
no,
doesn't work.
they had caveats on that recommendations. If the references were, there was 2 caveats in there, but I think it's good. Is someone trying to talk?
It's Georgia asking who made the recommendations. She's not hearing the.
Lynn.
Lynn made it.
Lynn made the
Lynn-
recommendation.
And second by Mike.
Okay.
Causey,
And then all in
and the
favor.
vote was unanimous.
I did go, but.
He didn't count.
No, what you said, okay, what was your vote?
Good look
Plus.
So actually, it's one more plus than we have. I got your little check mark.
Check thing.
This, well, it's missing. Oh, you went back to the other? Where did that come?
What do
There
you
you
you want
go.
that?
Huh?
I just went back to the
Okay.
the document.
The top of this thing, I
Hey,
don't.
hey, Doug,
Yes.
Doug, it's Bob. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Excuse me, I had trouble getting in, but I'm here now. The sheet that I'm seeing that you're showing on the screen, where the
Yes.
reserves are 149, et cetera. What you just as a group agreed to was to go to C and B.
Yep.
But are you doing it that you're hoping all the contingencies aren't required?
No, at the bottom of this spreadsheet you're looking at right now, it's when I scroll down, you will see what assumption was made by me.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. If I could scroll it down so I could see that.
Okay, that's how much we have, it's unaudited, the 140, they say 140, it's a little more than that. But the 140 plus the 90 gets you roughly $230,000 in bonds reserve. Now, we won't have access until it becomes audited to that 130, but we have 90 now. As long as we have to go back to the PCAT board to get approval to do that, but we have access to the 90 from ponds surplus. I like that word.
So 90 is not part of the 140.
No, 90 is not part of the 140. The 140 is just what we did not spend last year.
So we would be able to, if they get this contract, even if, since we have 90 to pay right now, they could theoretically start doing their surveying.
And we could sign this contract and have the funding to do it. Okay?
All right, if we can get to the bottom of the sheet, I want to see where the,
Okay, just wait. I gotta go through each line item.
okay,
Uh,
okay.
Just so you know, we're on the hook for an additional 34,000 if you look at it. Those sewer cleaning and the interconnect inspections, those are the pipes between the ponds. That's $124,000. That was one of them. We waited for CDD to complete their project. We told them we'd get behind them. It got moved into this year, but the money was there last year. And the other one is the interconnect. They forgot to bill. Okay? So those two, we're on, the 124,000 rolled over from last year. We have 90,000 in the budget for that line item, which is a gap of 34,000. Okay? So we're $34,000. If this is the only line item we'd have to borrow from the reserves for stuff that's already been completed. And right now, it's already been built. Both approved projects, everything, for two different reasons, but doesn't matter. It spanned last year to this year. Okay, now I'll get Bob happy. We'll go down further.
Bob is always happy.
No, I think now we might be happy when you're on mute. I like to make jokes.
Doug, that was hurtful.
I don't think it was. I think you can handle it.
We'll have to get him into a training class.
Yes. Okay. There, Bob, the budget we have for this year for this pond was 105,000. If you take the little bit, not that I did show you this until now because you guys had to make the same conclusion I had made before I came in here. And I kept it open, mine was 205. Okay, so what that means is we need an extra 100,000 that would go up to the top, that pond reserve. And then beneath here, Bob, is your question. That says 100K from reserves. Then I said, let's just assume we have to do dewatering and let's throw that contingency back in there, that 10% contingency.
Mhm.
We would be able to, if you go up to the top, we'd be able to handle both of those additional expenses over the low bid. Okay? So if we have to do dewatering, I don't want to do dewatering, but the money is there to be able to do it.
But I guess if we have a wet early spring, right through spring into summer, that may become a necessity to stay on schedule.
Right.
To have it done.
And especially if they're in the middle of,
For a June, July.
So, this clarified, when you say dewater, how much water, how much are you lowering the pond?
yeah, look, his mention of control level, you have to get below that level. So they can't use a grader to level out the bank
Okay.
when half of the bank is underwater. So you have to pump the water out to another pond. Yeah, and you plug up the interconnect pipes and pump it to another pond.
Okay.
And we have no capability to do that ourselves. right?
Huh?
Like,
Be there a long time.
I did, when we did Sevilla with extreme divers, they had a big pump and we pumped it over land all the way to the float. And the only way they would do that is if I would get up and keep the pump running by filling it with gas.
crazy.
But I will tell, what? I will, that was months. But the problem is, if you go to dewater, the noise of that pump. And running 24/7 when you're trying to sleep.
Yeah.
The residents hated it.
Yeah.
They hated it. So you're
So-
better off to not have to do a de-water.
Not if Solero's involved.
There are ways around it. There are ways around it. So right now with Daniels Preserve, if you drive down Gateway Boulevard, you'll see a pump right there in front of where between, I think it's Fairway Lakes and the elementary school or the preschool that's right there. That's a very large pump. And it's draining down an entire lake system, not just one lake, but an entire system, because it's all interconnected in a way that we can't just plug it up. I only allow them to run during daylight hours, because otherwise it echoes across the lake into residential areas and it's too loud and you get too many complaints.
Okay.
But they're able to pump down an entire lake system
Yeah.
with a 12-hour window. Here in this pond, you'll be able to do it. No
And
issues.
we plug the feeding side of it. And
Yep.
then if we get a low, plug the
Yeah.
other end, it should be
Right.
just, unless we have,
The size of this pond will pump down very quickly.
Unless you have a tropical depression.
well, then, there's always.
But it also is quite a bit of a thing. But you look at that spreadsheet, there's a wide difference between, what is the one is surveying is 28,000, all the way down to surveying is 10,000.
Yeah.
So if you could go through this and get the low bid on each individual line item, the bid would be significantly less, but that's not, I don't, it's not possible. You can't line item do it. Plastics
Yep.
around.
One last comment, if I can, just as a form of background. When the Ponds Group and Doug and I have been on it almost since day one, when we first got into addressing erosion and pond bank replenishment, the driving force for us was cost as compared to Gateway. And our costs have probably been maybe no more than 15% of what they pay. Now, we do it differently, but that's, again, was part of the process. And the other part of the cost was being flexible with our suppliers, that we did it at their convenience. Because most of these things really weren't urgent that it had to be done today. So I love what I heard this morning, and it sounds like we're still adopting that going forward. And if you look at the prices, I don't know what the current amount of bonds in Gateway are proper, Daniel, but I would have to think it's somewhere about 13, 14 million. And maybe heading to a max of 27 million. And, we don't want to go there because we think we have an alternative with the littorals.
But it's unfair to compare because they won't do littorals.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, again.
They couldn't do what we do with that technology.
And I have
Because
offered it to them many, many times, but they're just not interested. They want the stones. They want the quote unquote Cadillac version, and that's fine if they're willing to pay for it. Heretofore, we haven't been.
I think it's the residents that want that. I could be wrong. I don't know.
Well, it depends on which residents you talk to, Doug. If you're talking to the ones that are concerned about cost, they're flexible. If you're talking to the people that hate littorals, they're not. But anyway, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background as how we got to where we are.
Yeah, and we started out, the first ponds we did was with armor maps. We had the Cadillac here. We did 3 ponds with the Cadillac. And yeah,
I thought we were mandated to have
No.
littorals.
well,
DEP.
well, a percent of the, so
Yes.
what they do is they plant the littorals on the conservation side or in the ends where there's no homes. You can get to that number without putting
Okay.
littorals around the whole pond. You can do the 2 ends where there's no homes, or you can do a conservation area. You can do it without, and hit that number you're talking about, and hit that number without doing littorals behind the homes.
Gateway has
How did
littorals too.
Gateway-
We
I
have
was gonna say, how
minimal
did Gateway-
requirements for our swift mud permits.
Yeah.
So our, swift mud, okay. We have minimal requirements, but that's where we go after the conservation areas, put them around those areas to protect them. So without having to uproot a conservation or a preserve area, that's where we put that in.
And basically, our group decided to have 100% littorals around, right? That's correct. Been about 20 years ago, yeah.
Yep, and we've always done it. But the other part of that, Lou, is we don't have communities with a DRI difference, and some of those in Gateway are, littorals are specifically excluded. Not many, but there are some. We've got a greater flexibility. I can't hear again. I've lost the sound, Doug.
I think they keep going in and out, Bob, because their
Okay.
internet.
All right,
They should pop back up in a minute.
thank you.
The picture you saw. So there's no erosion. If you go out there, the erosion, the number of inches of erosion is well within the state requirements.
And that's what we're looking at here.
Yep. You know, that's what we started to worry about. Our original impression was, we wouldn't do it. We'd only do the things we had to do to meet the requirements. But then when you look at, you know, I went out there and took quite a few pictures. I just showed you one. It's sort of like, oh, we need to come together as a group to talk about that. And so that's where we are. So, you know, with the low bid, it's roughly $52,000 to complete that extra bank that does not need restored, that's within the requirements. It's 52,000 to do the entire thing, which we do not have, you know, in the budget for this year. And the other thing is that you could do, Daniel mentioned, you could do littorals and plant extra littorals. So I thought that was a good idea. You could do grass without the coconut mesh and without because the bank doesn't need to be restored. But the problem with grass is it dies.
Now, the one suggestion, looking at the map, there's one house.
I know. There's one house, and maybe we'll do
I
that
would
one.
say
Well, maybe
do
we'll
that
do that
one
one
house.
house. Maybe we'll do that
Is
one
in
house.
between, you know,
That's not much money to do one house.
no, because all the rest of them are in blocks.
There's two
consecutive blocks.
There's two
that
consecutive blocks.
Don't need.
Yeah.
Any restoration. And even just from a restoration standpoint, to do two houses, skip one, do two houses.
Yeah.
It's probably easier.
Right.
Cheaper just to
Right. Just
go
so
right
you
down
know,
the bank.
the requirements for skipping that one house, that just basically came from Tetra Tech, and it was based on measuring the drop off within the state requirements. That's how it was done.
What would it impact the bid?
What?
What
That
would
one house,
Yeah.
about 4,000. It's not that big.
Within the contingency.
Yeah, it'd be 4,000 for that one home. If you looked at how many feet it, rough, just so you know, once they get everything done with the mobilization, you know, the survey, the general requirements and stuff like that, the price on the low bid is $43 a foot. So you just take the number of feet times 43, because there's no more general requirements, there's no more surveying. They're going to do that for anyway. All right. So,
You know, my concern is I don't see how we can do something for the Solero side specifically, just aesthetic and without setting a precedent for every other time that we have.
so and we got at least 7 other ponds behind this one. And I looked at the map, they have similar issues. So if you do it once, you're going to do it 7 times. So let's just say it's the same additional cost, 52,000. It might be a little less on smaller ponds, but 50, just say 50 times 7 is $350,000 additional expense by agreeing to this one thing. And you're right.
But I do like the idea of the link.
Yeah.
I think that's very.
And the thing is, I will go to the homeowner and talk to each of them that is in this area to let them know what the plan is.
Are you gonna give them the option to do it? if
No,
they want to?
no. I would not give them the option, but we might end up seeing out what would it cost to just, I'll call it rake, because there's a lot of rocks.
Right.
If you just remove the rock, it's safe. But right now it's rocks that's safe. So, but that's something we can, you know, along with the extra home, to add the extra home, I agree with you, Jim, that might be, you know,
Doug,
yes.
are we considering any fishing requirements when we do this? If some of the
Well,
There's
homes,
currently no fishing
On that
zones on that pond.
there is.
There's also no littorals on the pond.
Yeah.
So anything, well, hopefully, from our perspective, it'll be an improvement, whether the homeowners
Yeah, that's my question.
also, but it's not, that's why it's not an option.
Yeah,
It's,
I don't think it's worth opening up what ponds you can fish on, for this project. I think we keep the ponds that we have for fishing and keep them
Yes.
there. Okay?
And then just one other clarification, I know you've answered this for me before. Littoral planning is not included in the
No.
budget that we've got right now,
No.
so everything else that we do littoral wise will be in addition.
But yeah, it will be an additional thing that we'll come back for, but we have, if you look at the Jim, the PO you just got, that's for pretty aggressive planning on one pond 40. It was less than $5,000. Okay, so the aggressively plant this pond, I don't think it'd be more than 10.
and that was from Solitude,
Yeah.
who does the pond maintenance.
Yeah.
Is I take was I'd like to have the same contractor have ownership, so Bill isn't going spraying the heck out of this stuff, and
Yeah.
Tom just planted it, and, they're,
Yeah.
we're holding them responsible as a team to know, if you have to do this, do it well in advance, because they're coming
Good
in,
point.
and if it doesn't work,
But by the way, he is a diplomat, Jim, if you want to talk to a contractor. He told the contractor to stop spraying, to just stop the spraying. And then when the bank started to look better, he thanked the contractor
hey, you
for
do something
fixing.
and you see a
But yeah,
result.
all he did was stop working on that bank.
It didn't cost us anything.
It should have
They didn't give us a
saved.
discount for not spraying.
Yeah, right, exactly. Where's the discount?
Yeah, we did get a discount,
You know,
but maybe going
Except now
forward.
Lynn has to work with them because some of it's too thick. So
Yeah.
that's what we have when we have the floor.
Right, yeah.
It's
It's a
managing.
constant issue.
It's
It's a constant
managing.
issue. It is a constant issue.
Yeah, well, it seems like when they go out there, they just.
Yeah.
they're spraying everything.
Okay. I heard a lot of discussion. I think we're pretty much in agreement. I could be wrong. Could I have a motion that what we think the agreement is we just discussed?
I'm confused.
Wait a minute, I thought we already did it.
We went. to
Well,
CMA.
we're talking about the planning of littorals
Okay,
and not restoring
okay.
Doug, I think you should do that as a separate item,
motion. Okay.
a separate item away from the contract for this. That I don't think they need to go hand in hand.
Well, the only thing is, well, no, but once we get started, I would like to be able to actually have a plan in place to go back to the homeowners before they see the bank being done, is all I'm saying. Because
I
we
think-
need a separate contract to plant littorals anyway.
That's what I'm saying is you
Yeah,
look at
but we could add
as
that
two
to that,
separate items.
And we could add that.
So you have the bank restoration, that contract you've already approved. You
Yeah.
already went through that motion.
Yeah.
Now you're trying to consider a secondary motion of
Yeah.
what we do for the
And,
littoral.
and, well, I guess the recommendation, though, I do need a motion on the fact that we're not going to restore the $52,000 when we go back.
Well,
That would be,
if I were to say I wanted to hear a motion, it would probably be along the lines of to go out and seek proposals for littorals for the specific pond and bring that back to the table to see what that dollar sign actually looks like for this.
and the difference about the project we're doing should be done in dry season. And the littoral planning should be done in wet season.
Well,
So
but
they
I'll
do it.
also need to know from them, because this is not just for the section that
No,
is not having work done. The long-term plan is we need to know when would be the appropriate time to come in and plant littorals post-restoration. It
Yeah.
probably isn't, it probably takes a year or two for stabilization but that's what I would expect from them
Yeah.
because of their experience saying,
Right. Yeah.
So it could be under them for two questions. One, what would the costs, their recommendations for restoring littorals on the banks that were not restored
okay.
post-work
Would-
because of they
right.
she'll be going over these areas to get to the various sections. And what are their recommendations post-completion for planting littorals on the remaining
Right.
section?
Right.
If it can be done at the same time, obviously in different.
Ponds budget.
The fiscal report or the discussion of ponds?
The
Just that one.
discussion of the budget.
That one? Okay.
So then you're asking for a motion to seek out a bid for the floral planting?
Yeah, Jim will do that.
But we don't.
Because then we don't have anything to take a motion on because we don't have
We
anything
don't have
to
a bid,
propose,
we don't have a bid or what it would cost or anything.
So,
not enough information.
I don't think this is the start. I've covered it with Peggy, the budget. I think what is a workshop, April. I forget the exact date, but there's a workshop at PPAC to start the budget process. We in our group have already started the budget process. Go
Sorry,
down
there
if
you
you can. I just wanted to show, keep going. You see there, a bank improvement on the waterway that is now 300,000. This year it was 100. Okay, so next year we have 300,000 to work on bank restoration. The only thing is I got down here what my projection would be is 835,000 for the total, which is a 3.86% increase. But if you look at below that 4.76 is the additional expenses we picked up that were not in our budget this year for the fountains, for the mainly the fountains. I should maybe sound on the others. It don't matter. But for the things we picked up, we weren't expecting to do the boardwalk restore project with the asphalt. The fountains, the main fountains here that we picked up the 3 of them. We weren't expecting the power because we didn't have it, or the repair that we spent quite a bit of money for the fountains that he wants to get rid of. So that Lou wants to get rid of. This file is in the agenda packet. If you look at it, if you have anything you think has been missed, I mean, we still have over a month before, but like I said, I covered this with Debbie.
this is going to be for the high water mark, meaning that anything you think you might want to get it in. You can cut it back later. But if it's not there now, it's not going in.
So are we on a calendar year or fiscal year?
We, the end of September, the new year starts October 1.
But we have to have an approved budget by June to be able to send out notices, fair notices.
Some date in mid-June is.
Yeah. And in the past, the PPAC and the Ponds Group both have tried to not have increases.
That is the goal.
That is the goal.
But with the understanding, as Gateway has seen, pond restoration after, with all the amount of bank erosion after mostly Ian, it has to get done.
I know.
You know,
But that's why we increased.
there's
from-
liability issues,
One-
there's
that's-
regulations that say you have to do it. And
Yeah.
I'd rather have a 5-year plan than have a bond taken out and do it in, 24 months and
But
be paying.
by the way, what's the experience, Daniel? You got all those ponds all done in a week or a month or something like that?
No. So, like I said earlier, we're still working on fiscal year 23 projects. There's 2 lakes that are out there still pending from the original 8 that I think were bid on that one pre my time. 24, we took smaller chunks, and even more now, we're doing smaller chunks, 2 to 4 lakes at any given time that we go to ITB to put it out for bid, depending on the contractor's ability to actually complete the work. So, and it's all weather dependent, and they do one at a time. They don't come and tackle all of them. So one at a time makes it a slow process, especially with weather being what it's been this year. So
Okay.
Daniel, do you know the cost of the 2 from 22 that are still open?
Oh, not off the top of my head, Bob.
Ballpark? Millions?
No, I don't even want to speak to it. I don't, I'm not educated enough to tell you right now.
Okay,
I have to go
All right.
and look at it.
That's a good political answer, you know that.
Right. I don't
It
know.
doesn't come,
It's always a
it doesn't
good
come.
Before we leave, I did want to pull up to show Doug's lovely
Yes.
progress here across the board for our tracking system for ponds. I think this will help us going into the budget season about things that we've wanted to do as a ponds committee that we haven't been able to address either due to fiscal restraints or timing, things along those lines. And then there's a lot of other items in here. So Doug and I are working through it. If Doug wants to talk anything about it.
Yeah, I just think it's a way we put some small things in there, like one bubbler box. Right on the bank level, which we're responsible for, needs to be replaced. It's in this spreadsheet.
Mhm.
You might think that's a small thing, and it is, but it's a way to track some, because I just thought, even though it's not our group, I should put in there the flowway head wall, that needs to be cleaned. You know, it's not a ponds group thing, but to make sure it's not forgotten.
So this has a columns for date that we decided to talk about it for the first time, or if there was a decision point made for a recommendation to PPAC and up through the pipeline through to the board. What we think that estimated cost is going to look like and how many days that project may or may not take based off of just past practice or things that we've learned. When we actually started, when we actually finish it, and a whole bunch of notes that go in there as well. If there was a PO, if it's in the bid process, just to keep us on track. I'm really trying to keep all of the subcommittees flowing through with agenda management, and this helps as a tool for budgeting moving forward as well.
All the accessible online.
Yes, it is. Currently, I have access only to Doug, but he can share. We can share it to.
I can download that file.
It's on our SharePoint site, and I can distro it from the gateway side of the house so that we don't sunshine law and everything. But it's an open
By the way,
open
Mike
item.
and Jim, you should have access.
Mhm.
They have their Microsoft sign-in. I don't think anyone else is. Okay.
So there's that. And then lastly, before you wrap up today, Doug, can you please set your agenda if you have any agenda items for the next meeting?
Well, I think one agenda item would be the bank restoration. Okay, to see where we're, when the schedule, let's just say a schedule of what the anticipated start date, things like that. It would include a communications plan to the homeowners. I think Jim's littoral.
That might be the best to reach out to the president of the rate
I am
way.
on both ways.
Instead of going house, trying to contact each house
Yeah,
because.
but I wanted to show some concern to the homeowner. We will do it through the HOA presidents and do
Right.
mass communications, but I still think it's worthwhile to have a conversation with the individual. homeowner.
But it might be something to have at a meeting instead of trying to go individually.
We've tried them in the past with some of our bigger projects, and you have 3 or 4 people show up.
But you
You gave them the
documented,
opportunity.
they had the opportunity, if
Yeah.
they didn't participate, it's.
Yeah.
On that.
All right.
So
Can we add in, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can we add in signages for the conservation? I don't have that discussion.
Okay,
So
You wanna present
topic of discussion.
you can present that. Okay. What?
It's the same sheet today.
Yeah, I got your little check mark.
Oh, man.
Even though I ignored you when you were behind me. That's why I made you move over here so I could see you.
He was there because he had your back.
Yeah, he had my back in case someone stepped in and.
All right, so what I've heard is 3 items for the next agenda. One being the schedule and the communication plan for the bank restoration for 36, proposals and cost analysis for littorals moving forward, and then topic of discussion for preserve area signage.
And-
Daniel? Daniel,
Yes.
one thing we might want to add just informationally is whatever the final status is of our open items with Lennar and Prado. There are a couple of items where Lennar did not complete things that were in the permit criteria manual. Not a lot of money, but it is an open item. We hope to close that by June 1st. So at the next meeting, we'll at least give an update.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
have that one added as well.
Yeah, by address of the home. Because of the fact that Chelsea's come back and said, if they get money from Lennar for no drainage behind the home, and we put it in, we should get the money that they were given. You understand? Right, because that's, and that's fair, but you gotta have the address to match which ones we did and what we charged. Okay. I hate it when it's now, but can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
You was very quick.
Haven't had a resignation letter submitted to Georgia, if that was still something that you were doing, and have you had any applications for replacements?
No. What are you talking about?
Was there there was a formal resignation letter if you're stepping down from the
Oh,
committee?
we have done phase one for the first part of the year. We did phase one, the two of us.
Okay.
I approached a couple individuals on the Ponds group to see if they wanted to run for the position, but we had 2 people run and 2 people elected.
Okay.
And that was approved at the last PPAC meeting. Myself and Mike were approved at the last PPAC.
Perfect.
We got 2 more groups coming up here in 3 months. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Every 3 months, we got a part of the board.
All right.
He looked at it like, I didn't resign.
I was looking at it, maybe you want to resign.
You're surprised you're surprising us here.
Jim was the motion was first,
Mhm.
and Mike was second,
Okay.
and it was
Georgia had sent me a note in the back.
6-0.
Jim, did you take care of Chick?
No, we
Fitzberger
only have 6.
Issues?
Because, what's his name's not
I'm
here.
meeting with Derek
Richard.
tomorrow.
Okay.
I've been-
All right, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you for signing off.
I'm working on it.